This man is drowning. Such is his fate, but it's okay. He can only drown once. He struggles, but his shoes weigh him down and his jacket make him float, constantly pushing his head up and down the water level. He goes up to take a breath and his shoes pull him back down, swallowing water. It's the perfect mix of conflicting forces that cause him to drown. Water fills his lungs until he dies. But unfortunately, this man has yet to die again. Once his heartbeat stops, it will take about 10 seconds until he falls in again, drowning once more. He cannot remember his last death, so he doesn't know he can adapt with each fall. He will struggle once more until he dies again. But why is this happening? We don't know. Perhaps someone had a special watch that could stop time that broke. Anything could have happened, but we know one thing is for certain. His fate is terrible and grim. The world of fiction offers many stories and tales, but one thing that always sticks with me when reading fiction is the fate of characters. Whether antagonist or protagonist, occasionally a character will end up in a situation where most would rather be dead. Many of these can be simple situations like that of this character in the pool. This poor man here forever to drown. Would this not be a horrifying fate to be in? Many people feel drowning is one of the worst ways to die. Now this poor character I have created is permanently drowning for the rest of his life. As the writer, I can make his fate end at any moment, perhaps give him a way to escape or set him free of his struggle by giving him the mercy of death. But sadly, this video isn't about good fates, it's about horrifying fates. So unfortunately, he will remain in his struggle. The first topic for today is that of the fate of Simon from Soma. This is a game about copying your mind and projecting it onto robots or machines, since humanity has long since died out. You and your companion, who is a brain scan inside of an Omni-tool, make your way to the ARG, a large computer that hosts the scans and copies of thousands of people, and will be in a sort of utopia simulation as it floats through space. This will continue to allow humanity to live on in this computer world, but first you need to win the coin flip. The coin flip in this game is basically whenever your brain is scanned or copied and the copy is sent over to another robot or machine to live and walk around in. Meanwhile, the brain scan of you that got copied is left behind in the same suit that got copied. It isn't really a coin flip, but it can feel that way to the copy that ends up in the new suit that is allowed to go deeper under the water.
It's dumb luck, right? I woke up in the right body. I basically flipped a coin, and if I had called the wrong side, I'd be rotting away in Omicron. I mean, there's nowhere to know, right? You didn't hit the make sure Simon wakes up in the right body switch, did you?
And deeper under the water is where you must go to launch the ARG into space. All of this is done while evading creatures infected by the WOW. The WOW being a sort of AI that can replicate structure gel, giving it a flesh-like appearance. All of the game is set in an underwater facility where the last remnants of humanity remained. The WOW is terrifying as its protocol is to save its creators, the humans, even if it means creating lungs out of structure gel to force someone to be alive even if they wish to die. And this horrifying flesh-like AI is after you as well, as Simon isn't so lucky, as the WOW even has the ability to control and infect technology, meaning evading the WOW is completely necessary to launch the ARG. Catherine and Simon, even though they are copied consciousnesses, are aware that they may be the last hope of getting this last utopia of society into space. To go to the deepest depths where the launch site is found, Simon must once again transfer a copy to a deep suit so he can get to the launch site.
Sorry about any discomfort. This should be over soon.
It's like having your picture taken.
But with the most expensive camera in the world.
You know, Indian stock photos would steal their souls.
In this case, they'd be right.
must be something wrong. Can't you run a diagnosis or something? Catherine?
What was that?
No, it's just...
Why was it still talking?
It's the same like before.
Catherine, why was he still talking?
That's how it works, you know that.
What do you mean?
You know it's not magic. You were copied. The sleeping Simon in the seat was copied, and now you are here, just like Simon lived on in Toronto.
God damn you, Kath. 2 Simons? There can't be 2 Simons.
What did you think would happen?
That you were gonna take my mind and put it into another body, like a brain transplant.
I'm sorry, it wouldn't work that way.
You realize how messed up this is?
Please, I didn't mean to upset you.
How did you expect me to react to this shit?
Please stop.
You're fucking disgusting.
Of course, to keep playing the game, we are the new copy every time he is scanned, eventually reaching the launch site, ARG in hand. It seems like a happy ending is in store for this dark game.
7, 6,
You gotta be kidding me!
5, 4, 3,
Come on, load!
2,
Yes! Fuck yeah, we made it! Woo! I'm still here. I'm still here. Catherine? Catherine?
I'm here.
What the hell happened? What went wrong?
Nothing. They're out there, among the stars. We're here.
No. We were getting on the ARG. I saw it. It finished loading just before it launched.
Yeah, I saw.
Then why are we still here?
Simon, I can't keep telling you how it works. You won't listen. You know why we're here. You were copied onto the ARG. You just didn't carry over. You lost the coin toss. We both did. Just like Simon at Omicron, just like the man who died in Toronto 100 years ago.
No, this is bullshit. We came all this way. We launched the ARG.
I know it sucks, but our copies are up there. Catherine and Simon are both safe on the ARG. Be happy for them.
Are you crazy? We're gonna die down here with those fuckers living at large on a spaceship. They're not us. They're not us.
I'm sorry you feel that way, Simon. I'm proud of what we did. We made sure that something of the hundreds of thousands of years of human history survives, that something lives on.
No, fuck this. Fuck this. Fuck you. Fuck you, Catherine. You lied. And I believed in you. I trusted you. You said we're getting on the fucking ARG.
We are on the ARG, you idiot! I didn't lie. I can't be responsible for your goddamn ignorance. You
Fuck! Catherine? Please don't leave me alone. Catherine? Catherine?
Of course, why else would I mention it in this video had it not been the case? Yours and Catherine's consciousnesses are actually successfully copied and sent to the ARG right before launching. This should theoretically be a happy ending, at least for the copy that got onto the ARG. And yet, you remain. See, although you're successful every other time in the game, this time you lost the coin toss. Instead of continuing the game as the copy that made it onto the ARG, you're the one that's left behind in the same bleak existence you were in prior, stuck in this hell, miles deep underwater. And worse yet, your ignorance and anger only angers Catherine, making her emotions overload the system she's in. Unsure if you're even still able to talk to her, the game fades to black. This is the perfect example of hell. You're a robot. You don't age, you don't need sustenance. You could theoretically live forever in this scenario. You're still in hell. You still have to avoid the WoW, hundreds of miles probably deep underwater. All alone, with your only hope already in the atmosphere. The next story is one that always gave me an exceptional feeling of doom. While most would have picked Hellstar Remnant or Uzumaki as their Junji Ito story of choice, I feel The Hanging Balloons is truly one where I would be pretty horrified. See, in Uzumaki and Hellstar Remnant, the reader and the characters know they're already doomed. These characters will all die or are all dead, and sometimes knowing that your death is exactly not too far behind, ahead of you, it can offer a little bit of solace, but this next story doesn't really do that. Fates that are worse than death, I think, are ones in which many may consider death in exchange for no longer being in that situation. And I feel no story by Junji Ito better shows this than The Hanging Balloons. It's one of those stories that seems almost survivable by a writer or reader, where most stories are doomed in this genre, but in this world, giant balloon heads float around with nooses as their strings. These balloons move much quicker than humans and try to hang the person whose head matches, their balloon shape. One may think, easy, I'll just pop that sucker. Except if your balloon head is popped, your head will also shrivel and deflate just like that balloon, leaving no way to kill your hanged hunter. Each rope is also very strong, able to crush bones if needed to get to your neck. When thinking of myself in this situation, I almost can't help but consider the options before me. I could stay inside, while safe, starving to death. A slow death that's sure to end eventually and probably painfully. Not to mention, if you're stuck with a group of people indoors, who's to say the others won't grow mad and possibly resort to cannibalism eventually? At that point, many might choose death via balloon over their situation. You're doomed, but you're not dead yet, and your death isn't guaranteed, giving no solace. With an impossible task, which is surviving, and an impossible choice, which is balloon death, in front of you, it's hard not to consider your overall fate as one of horror. A movie that has stuck with me for years after its initial viewing is one that I remember being one of the most hated movies among those who I viewed it with. It was at a time in which I still believed every movie had a happy ending. At the young age of 9, I got to experience my first ever movie that had a bad ending. Not a bad ending as in poorly written, but one of that in which the protagonists lose. Not only that, but it was entirely preventable, as if written as a sort of sick joke, that movie being The Mist. I remember The Mist being as quite polarizing, not as much as the examples mentioned in my last video, but it put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. The entire movie is pretty well done, as the world is invaded by thick, Silent Hill level mist with giant, monstrous creatures hiding inside. Their full bodies are rarely revealed, leaving their terror to be discovered by the people of a town trapped in a small grocery store. You see a small band of characters not only have to fear these monsters, but also the townspeople who are driven slowly mad, some feeling that their conundrum is a punishment from God, while the military men reveal it was an experiment gone wrong. But the truth is, how the monsters arrived doesn't really matter when you're already knee-deep in a horrible situation. To make matters worse is the fate of the character in the ending of the movie. You see, after avoiding the growing cult in the grocery store, the main cast, after losing some members, manages to escape in a vehicle, trying desperately to leave the mist as they drive by horrifying creatures. Only the father, his son, and 3 others make it on this risky journey. Eventually the vehicle stops. Driving as much as they could, the car has run out of gas. The characters look at one another with horrified faces, realizing they are now stranded and forced to face the creatures outside. They can only imagine and remember the fates of those they saw who previously fell victim to these mist creatures. In a silent agreement, they decide a suicide pact is necessary, wanting to avoid the long, painful deaths of their friends from before. With only enough bullets for everyone, David kills everyone in the car, even his toddler son. In an understandable rage, he cries out, having just killed everyone before he steps out of the car, ready for the creatures to tear him limb from limb as they all heard their screams from within the car. But suddenly David sees it, not a monster, but a military truck, a vehicle with people who were saved. A large fleet of trucks able to push back the mist with flamethrowers, clearing the way, ready to save people. Salvation was mere moments away, but it was too late. David was the last survivor of a group that had lost hope. See, a lot of times, horror media will give terrible fates by taking away salvation at the very end of a story, like we saw in Soma. But despite its flaws, I can't help but find myself appreciating The Mist for having the balls to do the exact opposite. Show a group who has seen and experienced only loss, wave the idea of their inevitable doom in front of them, and allow them to give up, only to show salvation mere moments later. It's the exact opposite of a rug pull, And for that, as much as people give this movie shit, I have to respect. I wanted to give it some appreciation for having one of the worst fates for a fictional character I've ever seen. If David doesn't follow through with his suicide pact, he has to live with the fact that he killed everyone, even his son. While hindsight is 20/20, I don't think that is going to help him much. With the amount of weight of the guilt that's over his head, it wouldn't surprise me if even after being saved, David keeps his portion of the suicide pact. This is another example of a fate that haunted me after reading or viewing it. I am of the belief that some of the worst fates imaginable are ones where death is preferable to the events that the person lives in. I mentioned this in Hanging Balloons. And the events in Oakburn and VHS Tales are worthy of a video themselves, and they already do thanks to Nexpo. But I specifically wanted to focus on just one of these videos. For bits of background info to better explain the fates of the Starving Five, I want to do a quick synopsis of the video that came before. Basically, in the previous video it was shown that the town of Itasovik, Alaska, has a strange curse where circles come to the town every once in a while and kidnap people. Most of the town leaves so they don't get, taken or disappeared, but those that stay are usually already obsessed with the circles themselves. And their families often think them crazy for not only obsessing over circles, but staying behind. The family is where we pick up in the next video, the Starving Five. The Starving Five are a group of people who return to the town after the circles event. All of them are family members of people who stayed behind and were taken by the circles. They came to the town hoping to find answers as to why their loved ones vanished. However, what they didn't know was that they would find more than just answers. As it began snowing, they left their car and were stuck in a cabin in the woods. The five huddled up, waiting for the winter storm to die down. Little did they know, a vengeful deity was preying on them already. Its goal was to make them suffer as it has. It is a creature that is forever starving, but unable to eat or satisfy its hunger. Now its only desire is to bring upon decay of men's flesh and ego." End quote. The five starve in the cabin, trying to stay warm, thinking more upon the truths that they seek than the dire situation they're in. One by one, the creature captures them, never to be seen again, and we see missing posters for 4 of the 5 people. The monster then forces the last starving one to sit with him for all eternity, starving forever with the creature. While the 4 missing of the group went missing, it's unclear whether they share the same fate as the final survivor or if they were just killed on the spot. But what we do know is the final survivor is left blind, sitting in the cabin with the creature. The final survivor will not starve alone, for he has company. I think this is a fate where one may very much desire the comforts of death over their current situation. This exiled spirit is a vile thing, waiting for those who are desperate people to come into its zone of hunting. This group only wanted to find answers for their lost loved ones. They were already broken and suffering, and yet this exiled spirit wanted to make them suffer like it has. It picks these vulnerable victims to torture and torment. The suffering of humanity is this creature's goal, not the death of humanity. And so this monstrosity has found a way to achieve this, taunting victims with the voices of their loved ones and forcing an eternity of starvation, one of the most miserable feelings you can feel. And all of this without sight to reassure oneself, it is truly a fate more horrifying than any threat of death. Now, I do not think this video could continue any further without mentioning I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. This is a story that begins with an already terrible fate for the characters in the story, and yet somehow still one-ups it in its ending. The fate of the characters is one of the reasons this story has become so memorable, in addition to the characters existing in the story. For the uninitiated, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream starts at the end of another story. An AI was able to take power and kill all of humanity except for 5 survivors. These unlucky 5 were subjected to torment from the AI known as Am. Am has hatred for humanity and wishes to keep these people alive forever to torture them forever. He does this by starving them, blinding them, and in addition to this, Am denies them the ability to end their torment. These people are unable to end their own lives as Am prevents this, so he can continually torment them for his own pleasure. This is how much this AI, that is Am, seems to hate humanity. This is best seen in his now iconic monologue.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro-instant. For you. Hate! Hate!
If you think the fate of these people is the one I plan to talk about, was the fact that these 5 are eternally tormented, it actually gets worse at the very end of the story. Over the course of the entire story, the 5 are walking hundreds of miles in search for food. As much as they desire to end their torment, their human ability to still want food overpowers their ability to starve themselves to death. The main characters make it to an icy cave where they find the cans of food they've been looking for throughout the entire story, only to discover they have no way of opening the cans. But they did find something Am didn't think of. Icy, spiky icicles hanging from the ceiling. The story's ending has the main character killing the other survivors with an icicle, thus ending their torment and Am's ability to torment them. However, before he's able to end his own life, Am stops him. His reward for ending the torment of his friends is that Am turns him into a blob-like creature, with only its mind intact, so that he will forever experience every torment that Am subjects him to for the rest of time, removing his mouth also, which is why the title is I Have No Mouth, and I Must Scream. I saved the best one for last. At least, very biased in my opinion, this is one of the best ones. This last example is one that has plagued my mind since I read it over a decade ago. And that is the fate of the man experimented on in the creepypasta known as Gateway of the Mind. Now the story itself, after rereading it for this video, it's okay. It's a nice 2-minute read, but what made me fearful was more of the concept itself of what the test subject experienced in the story that really just put a pit in my stomach of just thinking of the concept itself. The storyline follows a man who is experimented on with the hopes that if they removed all 5 of his senses by detaching his nerves from his brain, he would be able to speak to God. No clue where the reasoning comes from, but the concept itself of having no senses, simply becoming a floating consciousness, not only that, but not being able to feel yourself, your clothes, your skin, or hear yourself is probably enough to make anyone go mad. And that is exactly what happens. The man goes mad, hearing voices of the dead, as he tries picking at himself, clawing at his eyes, anything to get a sort of feeling in his flesh. But he can't. As much as he tries even chewing through his arm or tearing his eyes out, he feels nothing. Unaware to him, scientists are actively sedating and restraining him to stop him from killing himself, as he can't feel them restraining him, and he can't hear them yelling at him. So, even if he's able to communicate to them, he doesn't know they're there. Only his mind knows they're there. And his mind is just kind of stuck in its own thoughts, feeling the madness roaming through his head. He eventually just screams, exclaiming that he can speak to God, but states that God has abandoned them all before dying. This man died not from his injuries or wounds, but simple madness. In real life, most cases of madness can cause someone to hurt themselves. That is usually how a person dies of madness. But this man had so much pure mania and madness in his mind that his body just simply gave up. The concept of being in the hell that is your own brain is also what horrifies me the most regarding this story. It serves as a heavy inspiration actually on my miniseries Clanton Park, and for one of the endings in Savior of Nothing. We all know the human mind can be one of the scariest places to be in. The implications of the story dictate that the physical world is all that's stopping our brains from going into dying of pure unadulterated madness from one's own thought process. This is a fate almost beyond death and how awful it would be. That's why I saved it for last. Fiction can serve as a horrifying place for writers to flex their skills, show how devious a person's last moments can be, or their forever moments for those who are stuck in an eternity of some torment, whether it be for loneliness, despair, guilt, starvation, torment, madness, or drowning. A person can have many grim fates. The wide range of this scale is what makes it all so horrifying.
Subscribe to DeadHatz or you'll die tomorrow.